Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond,
where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I am Amari Johnson.
And I'm Charisma. Welcome to another episode.
Here we are, here we are.
Yes, here we are.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. There's been a lot happening.
Yeah,
a lot
as always, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
You know, you get your little tax return, you say, I'm going on vacation, right? You go on Google, where's the best place to go on vacation?
Yeah.
There are cheap flights to shithole countries. Do you go?
Well, I don't agree that some of these countries that are being called shithole countries are shithole countries.
Right.
I can't even say at this point, because I've been having this conversation for a while now. I'm not surprised at this point. It's almost like you kind of just brace yourself and wait for the next pile of ridiculousness that's going to fall out of our leader. I use air quotes, our leader's mouth. I think this is just the latest in the bunch.
Well, I don't know if it's even the latest by this point, but a few weeks ago, of course, your president referred to
cute.
certain African countries and our first independent black nation, Haiti, as a shithole country.
Yeah.
Right? And, there's been obviously all kinds of uproar and, disgust and
then
so on and so
followed
forth.
it up with we should be getting more immigrants from Norway, right?
He just happens to be partial to, the Aryan folks, you know what I mean? Norway, Sweden, so on and so forth. Yeah,
I have nothing against people from Norway.
Aryans.
But that's a different story. But it's so outrageous, and the statement wasn't founded in any kind of truth.
But does it have to be? Come on.
I mean, it should.
Alternative facts, all right?
Yes, alternative facts. True
I mean, it's really reflective of I think, the times in which we live where, it's not about how right you are, it's about how loud you are. You know what I'm saying? And if you make the most amount of noise and, enough people agree with you, then, similar to we're going to build a wall and they're going to pay for it. Huh?
Here we are.
Yeah.
This is where we are.
I mean, politics of domestic, international affairs, international policy, as well as immigration. These are some hot topics in the country right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a flame that's been fanned by, jingoistic and xenophobic rhetoric.
Yeah.
And, it's touching people's lives on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a conversation that has been, long in the making, I would say, as far as foreign policy goes and as far as folks are treated here.
Right.
Like, let's not forget about Katrina and how those communities were
never
treated.
forget Katrina.
Never,
right.
So what do we do? How do we keep this conversation going?
Well, today we're joined by Chiji Akoma, who is a professor of English and Global Interdisciplinary Studies at Villanova University. And he's going to help break down what's really been happening, what the sort of history behind that is, and more. Okay. So we'll be back with Dr. Chiji Akoma here on 28 Days and Beyond. Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. Right now we're joined by Chiji Akoma, who is a professor of English and Global Interdisciplinary Studies at Villanova University. Thanks for joining us, Chiji.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome. So tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Actually, this year is a very significant year for me because this year marks my 25 years of arriving in the United States.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Celebration. It's a celebration.
Yeah, so I was born in Nigeria, in the southeastern part of Nigeria. I'm an Igbo by ethnicity. And I did my undergraduate program work at University of Calabar, also in the southeast, and did my master's work at University of Ibadan in the southwest of Nigeria before arriving here in 1993 to do my PhD program at the University of New York in Binghamton.
Wow.
Yeah. It's cold up there in Binghamton.
Yeah. Oh, it was very cold. I remember the year I arrived. It was one of those very, very terrible winters. I got up one morning and the power was out. I was in one of these apartments where it's a basement, but you can see the street level.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wake up and boom, I couldn't see anything outside because snow had just covered the whole place. No power. I felt like I had just been buried. That's how I felt. I'm like, did I come to the United States to die in cold?
Yes,
it
you
was
did.
messed up that way.
Well, we're glad you survived.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yeah.
So what brought you here to
Villanova? It was a great experience.
What brought you here to Villanova?
Work.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I've been here at Villanova since 2001. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience these number of years.
So now you're the chair of the Global and Interdisciplinary Studies Department?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I'm the interim chair because that department was just established this past fall. Before then, it had existed as an institute, founded, at least with the founding director as Dr. Magan Keita. So I took over this past fall once it was converted to a department, and we are very excited about the great things we are bound and we are determined to achieve in this new program.
Wow.
What are some of those things?
Yeah.
We are very much interested in helping our students speak across languages, and I don't mean languages in terms of, you know, French, German, Swahili, or whatever. I mean in terms of discourses, in terms of disciplines. We train our students to speak across disciplines, to be able to speak the language of the social sciences as a way of understanding issues in humanities. So our students are therefore required to take courses that train them in those regards. But we're also thinking in terms of ideas that cut across borders.
Okay.
We are global. We want to look at issues that do have global significance. So our students are interested, or at least we bring them to the point of understanding issues around global health, health inequalities, ideas around migration, ideas around, you know, gender, sexuality, and the like, to understand the centers or the corners of power. Who wields what power? Who wields and in what ways are these levers of power wielded? So our students are very much engaged in those kinds of ideas to think about. We think about issues around peace, reconciliation, and the like. Where are conflicts? What are the things that generate conflicts in the world? How could these conflicts be at least, we don't think we can resolve all the conflicts in the world, but at least what are the kinds of tools that might enable us to at least take a stab at resolving some of the conflicts that come around. So these are the kinds of things we want our students to be engaged in, which we offer in terms of courses, and we hope many of our students come out, you know, in very, very successful ways as far as what the major calls for and what they do with it after.
Well, because you are, you know, our expert in global studies, and that's what you're teaching the students at Villanova, I think it's a perfect time to kind of talk about more what's happening in our country right now, some of the statements that have been made in terms of immigration, in terms of countries that are not the United States, and in terms of black and brown countries. So we definitely want to get more into that when we come right back. We have to take a little bit of a break, but we'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
And we're back on 28 Days and Beyond with Chiji Akoma.
Yes, we are. So we want to just jump right into
Right,
it.
let's do
There have been a lot of statements made lately, one of which was made by our president, Donald Trump, where he referred to Haiti and some other places as shithole countries, and it's turned into this, you know, big outrage as it should be. But what are your thoughts on that comment coming from our commander-in-chief?
Well, at the very fundamental and basic level, you have to be disappointed that the President of the United States will stoop to that level of language, you know, what you will call, in Nigeria, will call gutter, you know, language. It is way beneath the office that President Trump occupies. And so once you get past that, then you also have to think about the idea of reducing nations, peoples, regions of the world into such a very despicable, you know, kind of description. Yeah. So there is that, you know, because what that kind of statement, what that kind of characterization suggests is simply a kind of denigration of peoples at a very, very wide scale. So even just the idea of trying to identify nation states, countries, an entire continent, and part of the Americas in the case of Haiti, to simply reduce them to that kind of language or characterization is very, to put it mildly, is very unfortunate. It has no basis, in the kind of civil discourse that is possible.
And it's incorrect.
And of course, I haven't even started thinking about just that very characterization. I'm still looking at it from the point of language, the kind of language one uses, and the thinking behind that kind of characterization. But then, of course, you delve into the language itself. You delve into the very subject matter itself. And you find all kinds of inaccuracies. In the first place, it's not even a situation where that is the best language you can use to describe or try to make sense of the kinds of economic, social, political, historical differences that mark out every nation. And so I think about that. I think about the complexities of understanding how we operate in the world, and I see how that particular kind of description falls so short of the mark on many levels. But
you say it falls short, and that obviously people are outraged because it was said. But it would seem to me that any sort of precursory study of U.S. foreign policy towards those nations would actually reflect that that's how people have, how the United States has felt about that country. I mean, you look at, no president has bombed Africa as much as Obama did. You look at the treatment of the Clintons towards the nation of Haiti, right? Even in the wake of the earthquake a few years ago. So in other words, U.S. foreign policy has actually always sort of reflected that sentiment. They may have never said it. So are we upset at the fact that he said it, or why are we not upset at the fact that this is actually how these countries have been treated?
That's a very good question. I think, in a way, you are absolutely right that if you look at U.S. foreign policy, look at U.S. diplomatic relations and its attitude toward African countries and its own relationship with its neighbor right here, Haiti, that you can see that there's obviously a kind of condescension that defines that relationship. But the difference between that relationship, or the difference between how Africa is perceived by U.S. governments and how it talks about it, is actually, it again comes back to language. Because in as much as they are, in closed spaces, in secret places, even if they utter or they see Africa in those terms, there is at least a recognition that Africa is also a very powerful economic aspect, component of America's own economic success. The crude oil that comes in more recent years comes from that part. But if you think about that year, 1619,
right,
when those 20 Africans arrived in Jamestown in Virginia, the very first ones who arrived in the United States even before the Mayflower. They arrived here in the U.S. A couple of months before the Mayflower arrived. Then you begin to see then that Africa has always been part of the American story. We've always been part of what makes America America. I don't even want to talk about slavery and the kind of way in which slavery, the institution itself, and the use of free labor built America. But there is at least, every subsequent government has seen the need to at least give Africa and African nations a modicum of respect, if not our recognition, even if the language, even if in the kinds of policies they adopt may not be always favorable. So again, the articulation of this, or this characterization, this idea of shithole country, that whole language, very much takes that relationship on a very different level. That fully, removes even the appearance of respect and recognition that had always existed in the past. Now, in saying that, I'm not in a hurry, however, to say that President Trump came into power and boom, Africa lost all its, all its cachet in America, because that would be false. You've cited some of the instances where Africa has not been done right by America. But I think that this is another level to it. This is another level that has never been anticipated at all, which I'm still trying to walk through as far as the implications.
Well, I think we're all trying to work through what the implications are. But Dr. Chiji Akoma, there's never enough time. We're barely scratching the surface, but we certainly thank you for joining us here.
Oh, thank you.
On 28 Days and Beyond. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. Amari, I feel like we just scratched the surface of that
certainly.
Conversation.
Yeah, because the fact is that, and I think what Dr. Akoma was referring to is that this is something that has a long history that extends beyond just a few weeks ago when these statements were made. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, obviously we're talking about centuries and centuries, as he started to break down. We're talking about centuries of foreign policy. You can't get into that in a 30-minute show.
No. Yeah. But hopefully we can continue to have that conversation. And
we
now that
will.
This statement was made so blatantly, it's not so easy to sweep some of these issues under the rug. And now that it's out there in the forefront, hopefully we can start working towards fixing some of these issues that have been present and been prevalent for years and years and years, and people haven't really been paying attention to them. So
one of the things that we've talked about before, but it also came up today, was just the idea, though. I mean, folks are saying, well, I'd rather have them say it to my face than act behind the back. And then they say it to your face and you get mad.
And then it's like, okay, now what?
It's like, what you got to do now?
Yeah.
But as always, there's never enough time here on 28 Days and Beyond. Yeah. But, this was just one of the many conversations that this season we're really, delving deep into, or as deep as we can with the time allotted. So we thank y'all for joining us. This has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond,
where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.